Hello, this is RJB-Mallacore, and one of the things that I've been asked a lot about regarding my art is the nebulas that I've been doing in Lightwave. So I decided to do a quick tutorial on the basics of how to make them. I may do more advanced tutorials in the future if there's an interest in that. So let's sort of hop straight in there. So basically, when I'm creating my nebulas in Lightwave, I start with a null object. So it's basically just something that, an object can be sort of attached to. In this case, we're working with hypervoxels. So up here we have our tab for hypervoxels, and we want to activate that null object. And I like to make sure I show the particles. And basically this is our hypervoxel at this point, so not very interesting, not very nebula-like. So we want to go and turn him into a sprite, so that sort of improves things a little bit. And then we want to give him a little bit of definition. Let's move that out of the way. So we can sort of see in the background there how just changing the size setting affects sort of the shape of the voxel. So we're starting to get more of a nebula look to it, but again, not very interesting. So we're going to adjust the texture amplitude a little bit, and there we go, we're starting to get a little more shape to him. And just, it's a matter of playing around with settings and seeing what you sort of like. This one builds up a little bit more definition there. So I think this is sort of a good starting ground for the basics. So once you sort of have a shape that you kind of like, then we go into shading. And then we pick a gradient and we base it on local density. So I usually like to start with a darker color, so let's say this dark red, and go to, let's say, sort of an orangey color. So now we're starting to get sort of an interesting looking nebula kind of look to this. So we're going to drag him a little bit closer. A little bit more away. There we go. That's starting to look a lot more sort of nebula-like. And then sort of to build off of that, then I sort of toss a few procedural layers on it. Try to find something a little interesting. Let's see, what color do we want to make you? Let's see what yellow does. So that sort of gives you a little bit of variation in color. And let's turn that to additive. So I think we'll sort of roll with that one for the second. And then what I sort of do is I add a layer to sort of negate and add some negative space into the object here. Not quite what I want. And that's a little bit better. And it really becomes sort of just building up layers and just sort of see what you like. Like it's all just trial and error. Yes, that's not bad. And let's make him a little more dense to brighten them up. let's create a second one. So clone them, give them a bit of a rotation, and basically like that we have a nebula going on. So it's sort of a quick and easy process, like most of the time spent in tweaking, but that's basically how I do the basics of my nebulas in Lightwave. So let's load one that I've already done. So this is one that I've done, and he's made up of 2 nulls. And again, a very similar sort of process here. So again, sprites, sort of tweaked around with the settings here to create the voxel, and then shading settings is just sort of what you like. In this case, it's sort of a mixture of blues and greens with a bit of more blue and then some negative black to cancel things out and add a little bit of depth to the object. So just sort of to give you an idea of what the negative space being taken away looks like. And that basically gives you the basis for the nebula. And then from there, I basically load the nebula into Photoshop, and then I go create a curve and adjust my brightnesses and contrast sort of the way that I want the nebula to look. And then if I feel the colors need to be adjusted, I'll do adjustment to color balance to maybe I want it to be a little more blue, maybe I want it to be a little more green. Just helps bring out colors that you don't always get easily by doing it in Lightwave. And what I do to finish it off is I have a few star backgrounds that I just toss in and just set them to line dodge, and that basically makes my nebula pretty quick and easy. So as you can see, the stars show up in the background. Like if you're interested in the future on how to do stars, it's a pretty basic process of just using noise and sort of adjusting your contrast and brightness until it's just a few stars, and then in my case I toss a few layers on because it just sort of builds up the needed depth that I need for my scene. And sometimes I sort of move them around a little bit so that they're brighter and darker areas, but this is basically my nebula process. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and I might do another tutorial in the future on how to make a little bit more complex nebulas with planets, asteroids, and some of the more interesting things in the background. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And if you want to see any other specific tutorials in the future, just again, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Again, thank you for everybody's time, and hopefully you enjoy and learn something.